We good? Okay, so those of you on Facebook Live, good morning. Glad to have you here. So I'm excited to do the call today because I like to share messages that are specific to my personal experience. I think that that's always the best thing to speak from is your personal experience and sharing maybe those experiences and what you've learned and the growth that's come from that. As most of you know, we started the company, George and I started the company in Utah in 2009. And if you remember at all anything about the economy and the business of real estate, you know that things were challenging. In fact, it's been said that it was the worst market since the Great Depression, and I can tell you that it was not easy. And yet we started the company at that time. Prior to that, I had never owned a business, and I had never really managed anybody in the business of real estate other than a sales team to sell new construction homes. Now, I can tell you that I thought that I was prepared to do that job. And I quickly found out 6 months into the process, into the experience, that I was inadequately prepared. In fact, I would tell you, I would use the words incompetent and ineffective. And I don't say that from a self-critical standpoint, but really just being honest. And it's really the message that I want to share today is that experience that I had and what came from that. This is what I learned. You've heard me say, or George say over and over again, and maybe your managers or your brokers say that this company is a personal development company. There's a reason for that. That phrase actually came from a statement that I coined many years ago because of my personal experience. Being an owner and a leader in this organization forced me to develop personally. That if I did not develop personally, I was not going to be able to do my job because at the point that we started the company, I was incompetent. I was inadequate in terms of my skills and my ability to do the job. And so therefore, my experience was not pleasant. I didn't enjoy doing the job. And I can tell you that the people who interacted with me, hoping to get coaching and training, their experience wasn't good. So all around, it was not a good experience. That experience led me to really recognize the importance of personal development. And it's the reason that I came up with that phrase of that this company is a personal development company that happens to work with real estate sales professionals. Because of my personal experience, what I realized is the things that we talked about and the things that we did on a daily basis, that if I really learned those things, if I did those things, if I inculcated those things on a daily basis, practiced those things, that I would improve. And the improvement was absolutely necessary because there was a point in time where I nearly quit. Actually, multiple times where I nearly quit and said, you know what, this isn't for me, I'm not going to do it. And I remember one defining day, it was in the fall of 2011, and I drove up a canyon in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I had a real honest conversation with myself. And I asked myself the question, am I going to do this? Do I want to do this? And I remember it very clearly. The voice in my head said, well, you're not a quitter, and there is a way to figure it out. Just figure it out. And so that's what I did. I really went on a pathway of trying to figure it out. And the last, almost decade now, because we started the company 9 years ago this month, has been a journey of figuring it out. And I'm still figuring it out. But here's the cool thing. Why personal development? Why do we as a company say that we are a personal development company? Here's the answer. Personal development is about building our own value. See, in the business of real estate, we're in the business of helping people buy and sell real estate, but they don't choose us because we're real estate agents. You know that, because if they were to choose you simply because you're a real estate agent, you'd have plenty of business. They choose you ultimately because you represent value to them. And there are agents out there who represent a ton of value and therefore have a ton of business. And then there are agents out there who don't offer a ton of value and therefore don't have a ton of business. So it's really about personal development is about building your own value so that as you go out into the marketplace, people will choose you. And see, here's the cool thing. If you want to take an assessment, if you really want to count and understand how well you're doing at offering value in the business of real estate, there's a very simple thing. Just simply look at how much money you're making in the business. Now, I know that may not seem like a very nice answer or a statement for me to make, but it's the truth. And I'm always going to tell you the truth. The truth is, if you're not making very much money in real estate, you're not offering value to the marketplace. It's as simple as that. Because any marketplace where there is a demand, if you offer value, you will sell your product. You will be busy. You'll be able to meet the demand in the marketplace, and you'll be profitable. You'll earn a ton of money. So that's why we're so focused on personal development, because it's about creating value. It's about building your own value so that as you go out in the marketplace. And here's the other thing. We're about personal development because, as I believe, as Horace Mann said, the father of public education in the United States, he said, we should all be ashamed to live this life and to leave it without first having contributed something significant to humanity. I firmly believe that. My job every day is to go out and make a difference in the lives of other people, a difference in the lives of you, a difference in the lives of the managers and the brokers in the company, and others within the company, as well as those outside of the company, those who serve in our ancillary service businesses. It is my job, I believe, firmly, to go out and make a difference, to improve those people's lives, to improve their skills, to help them develop personally, so that they too can go out and offer value in the marketplace to make a difference in the lives of others. So this is what I want to share with you, understanding that premise and why I come from this standpoint. There are 7 people that over the course of the last 9 years, and there were more, but I narrowed it down to 9, who impacted me. And I think that for most of you, you'll know all of these names. And for some of you, you're going to say, well, yeah, I took that message from them. And others of you will say, well, I took a different message. And that's okay. I just want to share with you what I took from these individuals and share those thoughts with you. So I wrote them down. So let me go over these with you if I could. The first person that I wrote down, and I wrote him down specifically because he really was the first person that I was introduced to, actually by George. I remember when I was introduced to Jim Rohn. It was the summer, actually, of 2009, and George pulled out this CD. Those of you who are old enough to remember CDs, the millennials, it was a little disc that would be put into a player, and it would play things. It predates, of course, the MP3. I'm kidding, of course. George took this CD player out or CD and put it into his car, and we were listening to it in Moab. We were at the White Rim, if anybody knows that area. And this gentleman started to talk, and he started to say things that I'd never heard before but intrigued me. And it was a very defining moment, because it was at that point where my process, I believe consciously, of personal development began. So here's a question I have for you. Have you started consciously your process of personal development? Do you really consciously recognize that you need to improve, and then you've taken concrete, physical action towards improving yourself personally? I remember that moment. I decided that I was going to begin the process of personal development. Jim Rohn, I remember the statement that he made, and I wrote it down here. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. What an important phrase for me personally, because I remember that process in those beginning months and those beginning years, thinking about that phrase. So many times that I wanted it to be easier. The business of real estate, the business of managing and coaching, of leading an organization, I wanted it to be easier. I was wishing that it would be easier, and I reminded myself consistently, stop wishing it were easier and start focusing on becoming better. So my question for you is, are you wishing that it were easier, or are you focused on becoming better? Jim Rohn shares various messages, but I believe the number one message that he shares is that one in particular. And it really comes down to this. There are those who are in control in life, and then there are those who are out of control. Those who are in control, I call them the victors. These are the people that, despite what's happening out in the world, how difficult it may be in the business or in life, what's happening personally or professionally, what's happening in the marketplace, who's in the White House or out of the White House, where interest rates are, where inventories are, none of that ultimately matters to those who are in control. It doesn't mean that they're not affected by it. But what Jim Rohn would say is this: the most important thing that matters is not what happens to you, but rather how you respond to it. See, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. How are you going to respond? See, there are those who are in control, and therefore they are victors, because those who are in control, ladies and gentlemen, here's the distinction. They take responsibility for the outcome. They don't take responsibility for what happens initially to them, but they take responsibility for how they respond to it. And here's why I say that, because you and I both know this, that bad things happen to good people. It was a bad thing that the market did what it did in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. It was not an easy thing. It was a bad thing. Half of the agents got out of the market. Now, some of you might say, that was good. I might agree with that. But in terms of the economy, it was bad. And yet, there were those agents and those companies, this one in particular, that grew in those times, in the most difficult times. Why? Because those people, this company, were not victims. They were victors. See, those who were in control, then you have those who are out of control, and those are the victims. The victims say that I am not successful, and things are difficult, and my circumstances are what they are because those things happened. Therefore, not taking responsibility. So we have a choice. In summing up what I've learned from Jim Rohn, among many other things, we have to make certain that we take control, that we assume responsibility for our outcomes, good or bad, because in taking control, we no longer are a victim, but rather we are a victor. We get to choose ultimately our outcomes. Now, it doesn't mean that you win every time. Look, Michael Jordan did not make every one of his shots, and he did not win every one of his games, but because he was a victor, first and foremost in his mind, he went out every day and before he started the game believed that he was going to win it, and took actions necessary in most cases to make that happen. He was therefore a victor. His record made him a victor. That record was a result of his mentality and the actions that he took. So remember, we've got to recognize our responsibility for the outcomes. We have to be a victor instead of a victim. Number 2, John C. Maxwell. I wrote this down. I am a leader. Very simple statement. I am a leader. John C. Maxwell, if you haven't read him, I consider him to be the foremost expert on leadership in the United States. I don't think there is anybody in this country who has written a larger body of material on leadership and the principles of leadership and the importance of it. In his book, if you haven't read it, The 5 Levels of Leadership, he talks about the levels of leadership and how an individual can progress through those levels. And I'm not going to talk about those levels today, but I want you to just understand the concept. Here's the concept. He says that every person is a leader, regardless of your role in this life. Whether you're a janitor or the President of the United States or anything in between, you are a leader. His point is that you're not a leader because of the position that you hold. See, a janitor is a leader not because of the position that he or she holds, but because of who they are, and they have the opportunity to influence the lives of other people. So here's my question for you as a real estate sales professional. Do you look at yourself as a leader, or do you look at yourself as a business person, a realtor, a real estate agent, a real estate sales professional? What term or title do you give yourself? See, first and foremost, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not an owner of a company. I'm not a broker. I'm not a coach. I'm not a public speaker. I am a leader. And there's a reason I believe that. There's a reason that I have that focus, because my job as a leader, and this is what I've learned from John C. Maxwell, is my job is to influence. My job is to influence. See, it doesn't matter what my title is. If I'm a janitor, I still have the ability to influence. Do you remember the movie Good Will Hunting? Do you remember the janitor? Do you remember the influence that he had? See, it wasn't his title, it wasn't his position, it was the role that he played, who he was as a person, and the impact that he had. See, what I know is this, is when it comes to personal development, if we'll recognize that we're a leader, and we behave as a leader, we'll have the ability to go out and make a difference in influencing people, because that's what leadership is, influencing people, changing their perspective, so they change their behavior, so that we can lead them down a path to get them what it is that they want. And don't we have to do that as real estate sales professionals, whether we're working with buyers or sellers, because so often they have this opinion as to the way things should be done. Open houses, no open houses, sign, no sign, a lower commission, higher price. Do it this way, not that way. See, the truth is, you and I as professionals know what to do. But unless we are leaders, the people that we want to have follow us won't follow us. See, just because we're professional doesn't mean they'll follow us. We have to, first of all, be leaders. And leaders are great communicators who have the ability to change people's perspectives, to get them to change their behavior so they follow our lead to help them get ultimately what it is that they want. So again, do you look at yourself as a leader? I would encourage you anytime someone asks you the question, or you think about ultimately, what do you do and who are you? Come up with the answer, I am a leader. It is the first place to start. Whether you're a mother or a father, grandfather, grandmother, brother, sister, community member, church member, does not matter. It does not matter. You ultimately are a leader if you'll recognize that and then behave that way. Because people are yearning for leaders, for strong leaders. People will help them to change their lives, to get them what it is that they want. And isn't that why we're here? To help people to change their lives. And then number 3, I wrote down Brian Tracy. Brian is interesting. Probably one of the more difficult people for me to listen to because of his speech patterns, but great information. And if you haven't listened to him, do. And if you haven't read his books, do. The book of his that I like most is Eat That Frog. And he talks about this, and the thing that I wrote down relative to what I've learned primarily from him is to prioritize. Brian is about making certain that we as individuals prioritize, because there are so many distractions, especially in today's world with technology and in this business of real estate, to go out and do so many different things. And in doing that and diffusing our focus, therefore, we never really get anything of significance because we never stick with anything long term. We don't prioritize and do specific things long term. So in his book, Eat That Frog, he talks about that. He says, look, if you can eat a toad, you can eat a frog. And if you can eat a frog, you can eat a tadpole. The challenge is most people start their day by eating the tadpoles. And by the time they've gotten done eating the few tadpoles, they don't have a stomach for a frog or a toad. It's the last thing that they want to do. And yet, the truth is we have to get to the toads first if we're going to be successful. And you and I both know in this business what the toad is. If we were having a conversation where you could respond and I were to ask the question, what is the number one thing we should do in this business? What is the toad in this business? I think that all of us would answer in unison, it's prospecting, it's talking to people. See, we have to prioritize. We have to make sure that we're doing those fundamental things first before we get to those ancillary, secondary things. Are we prioritizing? See, I wrote down this point. There is a difference between urgent and important things. Look, you could say to me, for example, that it is urgent that you get to a call that a current customer has on a question, that it's in escrow and it's going to close on Friday, and therefore you have to get to that call right now. That might be urgent. I would agree. It's urgent. Escrow is closing in a few days. We got to get on the call. However, is it important? There is a difference. There is a distinction. In my mind, it's not important. It may be urgent, but it's not important. The important things are the fundamentals. Now listen to what I'm saying here. I'm going to slow down for a second. I want to say this very clearly. I want you to get this. And you should probably write it down. See, the things that are important are the fundamentals. See, the reason that a Michael Jordan, for example, or a Michael Phelps, or a Steph Curry are successful to the level that they are is because they do the things that are important. And the important things are the fundamentals. I'm going to say it again. The important things are the fundamentals. See, if we will do the important things, in other words, focus on the fundamentals, we create a great foundation to go out and do everything that we need to do in this business to be successful. See, it's the agents who focus on the urgent things, the wildfires, the things that have got to be done now, who tend to not be consistent in the fundamental things that we have to do to be successful at whatever it is that we need to be or want to be successful at. But it's those agents who pay attention to the important things, the fundamentals consistently, who will always consistently and predictably earn as much money in this business as they want. So my question for you is, are you prioritizing based upon what is important, not what is urgent? See, you can eat a hamburger today and not get fat. You can eat one tomorrow and not get fat. And you can eat one for the next 30 days and probably not really get fat. But if you do it consistently for a year, ladies and gentlemen, if you had a burger every day, you're going to gain weight. See, the issue is you don't see the results the first day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day. You see it over the long run. And it's like a frog in a hot pot. So you put a frog in a hot pot, it will immediately jump out. But if you put that frog in a pot of lukewarm water and slowly turn up that heat, that frog will not jump out and it will slowly die. And the fact is, I believe that most people in life in this business have that experience of the frog that's in the lukewarm water where the heat gets turned up slowly. Where they don't realize, because they're ignoring the fundamentals, that they're killing themselves literally or figuratively in life or in this business. Are you prioritizing based upon what's important? And then number 4, Zig Ziglar. Probably in my opinion, one of the most, if not the most fun person to listen to when it comes to personal development, just because of his energy and his drawl, his West Texas drawl. Fun to listen to that. From Mississippi, but he spent a lot of time in Texas, lived in Texas. I wrote this down. Have a plan and a goal, and more specifically, have a goal and then a plan. I wrote this down, that most people have habits and not a plan. I want you to think about that. See, most people don't get up and say, this is my goal today and this is what I'm going to accomplish. What most people do, you know this, because we watch them do it. Most people get up and they do what they did yesterday and the day before, not consciously but subconsciously. They get up and they just simply do what they did the day before, the week before, the month before, because that's how they've trained themselves. Not because it's designed to accomplish a specific end, but because that's just the way life is. They get up, they go to work, they punch in, they do their job, they might get some lunch, come back, do their job, punch out, go home, have some dinner, turn on the TV, decompress, go to bed, get up, you know the routine. It's just like the instructions on your shampoo bottle. Rinse and repeat. It's the same thing every single day. Not by design, but by habit. So my question for you is this. Have you designed your life? Have you created a goal of specifically what it is that you want on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis? Short term, medium term, long term? Have you determined what it is that you want and then put together a plan to make certain that that happens? Zig taught me something. I say told because I feel like I'm having personal conversations with every one of these men where I haven't met most of them, some of them. Zig is one I actually had the fortune to meet, to shake his hand. But he told me and taught me this. He said, John, first of all, identify a goal. Understand what your goal is. Get clear about it and when you want to achieve it. Have a goal, put a deadline in place. Once you have that in place, then ask the question, what's going to get in the way of making that happen? What challenges would you have to overcome in order to achieve that goal? And then come up with the solutions to those challenges. With those challenges and the solutions, and then a plan to overcome those challenges, executing those solutions every single day, success is inevitable. See, there are rules, as I said this morning in the daily message, if you listen to it, I said that success has rules. And if you'll just follow those rules, you'll be successful, because it isn't written anywhere that the rules are written for any specific person. The rules are the rules are the rules are the rules. If you follow the rules, you'll be successful. Violate the rules and you won't. So identify what the challenges are. Come up with the solutions and execute consistently every single day. That's what Zig taught me, among other things. And then the fifth person that I wrote down is this, Les Brown. The highest energy person that you could ever listen to, I think, in personal development. I mean, he's like a preacher when he stands up there. And the phrase that comes to mind every time I listen to or think about Les Brown is, you got to be hungry. The guy is all about being passionate, loving life, and knowing what you want and going out and getting it. But he said something that has stuck with me since the first time that I heard it. And I try to share this as often as possible, because this is where most people who want to succeed and begin the process get stopped. Like the deer in headlights. They're coming across the freeway or the highway, and they see that semi or that car coming. They get fixated on the lights, and they freeze. And the car comes, and they lose the battle. They lose the face-off, right? Most people do that. What do I mean? See, Les Brown said this. He said, how is none of your business? Most people will get caught up in, how do I actually do it? What do I actually have to do? Here's my point, and here's his point. Stop trying to figure out how every single moment. Just simply ask, what is it that I want? And then start going out there and doing it. Because here's the truth. There isn't one of you who learned how to swim by doing practice outside of the water. You didn't, outside of the pool, make the motions, lay down on the ground, and start to do your strokes. You didn't do it that way. I guarantee it. You know how it started. Somebody took you, if you weren't willing to put your toe in or to get into the pool, somebody took you and threw you in. My brother, not happy, didn't like it, cried, didn't want to go back to the pool again for weeks, but went back, probably had to get thrown in again. But that's the way we learn, not by observing on the outside, getting ready to get ready so that we're ready when we're ready. See, those who are successful throw themselves into it. How is none of your business. See, if you make how your business, meaning your focus every single day, as opposed to doing, you'll never do it. It's those who go out and do it who then are able to figure out the how, because you learn through application what to do and what not to do. I can tell you all day long what to do, but unless you simply go out and try it, you'll never learn it. Here's something that I've learned and I want you to remember. Knowledge is not information that we have. Knowledge is information that we have and execute upon. Information is worthless unless we actually do something with it. And oftentimes, the information that we have or could have, we will never get unless we go out and actually do it. So again, how is none of your business? Are you making how your business? Are you letting the process of figuring it out control you and to freeze you and to prevent you from taking the action that you need to in order to progress, to move forward? And then the next person that I wrote down here is Mike Ferry. Second to the last, Mike. I wrote down this: know your job and do it. Very simple. The number one thing that I have learned from Mike is clarity on what my job is as a real estate sales professional. And I remember 24 years ago, it was 24 years ago this year, when I first met him, and I watched him on stage doing what he did, especially back in those days, with his language and pacing the floor like he was a caged lion and literally spitting on the floor. You could see the spit come out, and I was offended, and I thought, there's no way I'm listening to this guy. And when I matured to a point where I realized I shouldn't be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and I listened to what he said to me this: John, understand what your job is and do it. Don't resist it. Submit to the process, and if you will, you'll be successful. And it was that moment when I started that process, I went from an agent who was failing in the business, questioning whether he should be in it, people telling me that I should get out and get a quote-unquote real job, when I made that transition within 6 years becoming a multimillionaire. Because I changed how fundamentally I was doing my job. I understood what my job is. Number one, to prospect. Number two, to follow up. Number three, to set appointments and to pre-qualify. And number four, to present to people. Doing that every single day. See, if you'll do those four things every single day, in other words, do your job, it is impossible. You could not prevent yourself from being successful in this business, but you have to do your job. You have to understand it. You have to know it. It would be my wish, my hope for every single one of you, that if I walked up to you and said, hey, what's your job? You would say, John, it's simple. Number one, it's to prospect, which means to lead generate, to find people who want to buy and sell real estate. Number two, my job is to follow up with people, because in most cases, people don't say yes the first time. It takes 7 to 12 contacts before they say yes. And number three, of course, it's my job to set appointments with those people and to pre-qualify them before I go out, so I give myself the highest chance possible of them choosing me so that they get the best professional to help them buy or sell real estate. And then, of course, number four is to actually go out and present to them powerfully, strongly, to differentiate myself from their other choices so they choose the best agent, so they get what it is that they want. That is what I would like you to say to me, because if you did that, then I know you're focused on the right things, that you're clear about your job. And here's the thing, with clarity there is power, which is something that I learned from Tony Robbins, by the way. Didn't plan on mentioning him, but with clarity there is power. The more clear we are, the more focused we are, the better results that we get. And then the last person I wrote down is Earl Nightingale. Let me finish with this. I don't need my cheaters anymore. We become what we focus on. It's a very important statement. I want you to just step back for a second and ask yourself this question. Am I where I thought I would be at this point in life? Am I on track to where I want to be in the future? Am I living the life that I want? Now, for some of you, you're going to say yes, or I'm ahead of schedule, or I can't believe the life that I'm living. And I'm going to say congratulations to you, and I know why that is the case. For those of you who would say, no, it could be better, here's the answer. It's what you're focusing on. It's a very simple concept. What we focus on, we get. So if we have negative thoughts and negative attitudes, we're going to have negative emotions and negative actions. And therefore, we're going to have negative outcomes. What are you focusing on every single day? I talked today about personal development because it's my hope that you recognize that it is your responsibility and it is your opportunity to improve who you are. But the only way to do that is to consciously recognize that you are in control. that it does not matter what's going on in the marketplace. It does not matter that the market is getting more difficult, which it is, and it will continue to do that. Let me say that again. It is getting difficult, and it will get more difficult as this year and the next year progresses. That is a fact. So it leaves us to a point of we're either going to be victims or we're going to be victors. I hope that you take the time, if you're not doing it currently, to discover the messages of these gentlemen and others, because there are many others. And then on a daily basis, you are focused on improving who you are. Because the number one asset that you have is you. Your ability to go out there and to communicate with other human beings, to change their perspective, to change their actions, and to get them to follow your lead so you can help them get what it is that they want, to make a difference truly in their lives. At so many different levels, not just in the business of real estate, in so many other areas. And I know you're capable of doing it. I know you are. It's not written anywhere that you can't be exactly what it is that in your mind's eye, in that dream that you have, that you are afraid to share with other people, that person that you see that you want to be, that deep down inside, that alter ego pushes down and tries to hide and say you can't do it, that person that's being suppressed, they're there and they can come out and you can be that person. The question is, are you going to take the pathway? Are you going to open yourself up to it? Are you going to be vulnerable? Are you going to be willing to admit that you don't have it all figured out? If you will, it'll change your life, and I promise you that, because it's changed mine. It's continuing to change mine. So thanks for joining us on the call and on Facebook Live today. I hope it's made a difference for you. It's made a difference for me. I've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.